Good afternoon. My name is Marilyn Slett, and I am the elected Chief Councillor for the Heiltsuk Tribal Council. And we are joined here today in unity with the hereditary leaders and the political leaders of the Pacific North Coast. And we traveled a great distance here to come out and meet with government representatives and the Senate, Canadian Senate, to express our support and urge their support in the and their support in the Bill C-48 Oil Tanker Moratorium Act. And one of the things that we wanted to express before we get into our presentation here today is we are joined by our hereditary leadership, and these are the traditional governors of our communities, and they are the ones that hold our authority with our customary and traditional laws. And we're here as political representatives as well to support our leadership. As I said, I'm from the Heiltsuk Nation, and one of the reasons why our community had expressed that we wanted to support this bill, we have been actively speaking out against tanker traffic to protect our way of life for decades. It goes back to the West Coast Oil Port Authority inquiry going back to the 1970s. And we had expressed our concerns around tanker traffic going through the narrow passages of the Inside Channel and through our territories. We are salmon people, we are ocean people. Our way of life depends on a healthy ecosystem. And 2 years ago, we had experienced a diesel spill, an oil spill in Heiltsuk traditional territory called the Nathan E. Stewart. And today, we're still feeling those after effects of that spill. It has affected our clam fishery, which has been closed. This is the third year of the closure over that fishery, and it was our winter economy. It brought our people through the winter time to get us through that winter season. So, certainly the economy has been impacted. The sustainability of being able to harvest from that area has been impacted, and we are in full support of putting forward good public policy that will support Indigenous communities, support coastal communities, and support the people that rely on the ocean for a livelihood, for our sustenance, and for our future. So with that, I'm going to pass this over to Garry.
Thank you, and good morning or afternoon now. My name's Garry Reece. I'm one of the hereditary chiefs of the 9 allied tribes of Kw'alaams, and we're over here with the delegation and supporting Bill C-48. We want to see this happen. My community has the largest fishing fleet that's left in the North Coast, and we have a state-of-the-art fish plant where it employs over 100 of our people, and it's been doing quite well with our membership and working in that fish plant. I was the mayor of Kw'alaams and chief councillor when it was changed for 16 years, and we have a lot going in our community. We're not in poverty. We have a forest license. We have an agreement with the Port of Prince Rupert, create a lot of jobs. We built a leisure center, a $10.5 million leisure center where it employs a lot of our people. So we have a lot going. And, our community is a fishing community. Always has been, always will be. And we can't afford to let anything happen like having an oil spill. We've seen what can happen on oil spills. It'll be a disaster. And all our resources that we have in our area will be all gone. So we cannot let that happen. So we're here to support Bill C-48, and we want to see this happen. Thank you. So I'll turn it over to Peter.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tlaats Peter Lantin. I'm the elected president for the Council of the Haida Nation. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Haida Nation and to articulate the strong support that we've had historically and currently for this moratorium on oil tankers in our territory. We're here with a historic delegation of leaders, not just in Haida Gwaii, but North Coast, Central Coast, where it's comprised of the elected leadership, like ourselves at the Council of Haida Nation. But I think more importantly, we're here with our hereditary leadership as well. These are the title holders and the rights holders in our territories, and are here to really put a face to the authorities in our nations that have said no to oil tankers. And so we thought that this oil tanker bill is already passed through the House of Commons, and we thought we were already there in terms of it being enacted and put in place. So we're here to show more support behind it, because right now it is in a process in the Senate, and we're here to provide some testimony from our hereditary leadership and ourselves to re-articulate the risks that are at stake here if this oil tanker ban does not get put into place. We came together historically for Northern Gateway. That was something historic in its nature, and then it shows the strength of the Indigenous peoples throughout British Columbia when they do come together and agree on something like this, where the risks are too big to even have a conversation around opening a corridor through our territories. I think for the Haida Nation, the main point we want to make here is that reconciliation will be at risk if oil tankers are allowed in our territory. A lot of Haida Gwaii is protected, the land base, the marine areas. We have a National Marine Conservation Area, the Great Bear Rainforest. All of these areas are too important to Canada. They're too important to us as the Indigenous peoples to put those things at risk. Canada has made commitments to protect these areas, and for us, we've been doing it for a millennia. So I think reconciliation has been that coined phrase of what this government wants. If you want reconciliation to continue with the Indigenous people, especially with the Haida, then this oil tanker ban has to get put into place immediately. The economy for Haida Gwaii is based on a healthy economy. So putting those things at risk for us it goes against any economic potential growth that we see in our future. And I think our economy depends on a healthy environment and a healthy people. So this oil tanker moratorium will ensure that takes place, and the economy that we're continuing to build in Haida Gwaii will continue on the path that it's been. So we're just here to try to provide that context and put a face to those that have worked so hard to ensure that we protect our environment, because there is a big lobby happening against this moratorium, and you have not seen our faces here in Ottawa, but we are here now, and we've come with like I said, a historic delegation of leadership. And we're just here to ensure and remind everybody about what's at risk around this oil tanker moratorium. Thank you.
Yes.
But, can you talk a little bit more about that diesel spill and what caused it, and whether that would have been connected at all to to this moratorium?
So the diesel spill that happened in Heiltsuk territory was October 13th, 2016, and the Nathan E. Stewart ran aground, and it happened in one of our it was one of our bread baskets. It was an area that our community harvests many species from, including clams, and that would have been a clam season that we would have been going into right now. It's a winter economy. We have been living with those impacts of that spill since, for the last 2 years, including restricted harvesting, no harvesting in the incident site, many hardships in our community, both mentally, physically, and with our sustenance. It's been something that's been very hard on us, and one of the reasons why we're here with our neighbors and our coastal neighbors, so we can really express to people how important it is to have waterways and coastal waters that are not put at risk.
But this moratorium wouldn't have affected that particular...
No, it would not have affected that, but it will, certainly be part of the measures around safety measures going forward.
Chief Reece, of course, your chief councillor at Kw'alaams supports the getting rid of Bill C-48. He's a part of the Eagle Spirit pipeline project. I suppose, what do you say to him and the communities further in that don't have the economic opportunities you do? They're counting on certainly the benefits from something like Eagle Spirit.
I'm here with part of our delegation is from the 9 allied tribes of Kw'alaams, and we're here supporting the Bill C-48. My community has made no decision to support the pipeline. That hasn't happened, and so they don't have the support of my tribe or some of the other tribes in our community. That hasn't happened. So just to let you know that.
Doesn't John Helene support the Eagle Spirit initiative?
Yes, he does, and I see that as a huge conflict.
I wonder if you talk about the fact that the moratorium does not apply to LNG and only to crude oil and related products. Is that something that you think is a problem, or?
Certainly what we have been putting forward in terms of support for the bill, it has been around, we've been working for decades around around keeping our coastal waters free of super tankers. So, that's the focus that we have right now in terms of protecting the environment and protecting those marine resources. The carriers of the oil and the bitumen and things that will really, really harm our ecosystems. I know one of the statements that one of my elders said in the 1970s when he was speaking in our language to the West Coast Port Inquiry is, if we experience a major spill, we would be finished. And we know that, just because we experienced what some would call a small spill, and we're still dealing with those after effects right now.
But you don't have the same concerns for LNG?
We're focused right now on the oil tanker moratorium. Our focus is to have that public policy put into place. Do you want to speak to that?
Sure. If I could answer that question on behalf of the Haida. So the Haida does have a mandate to oppose all oil and gas transportation in our territory. And I think when I say us, I mean, for the Haida Nation, I'm the elected president. I speak on behalf of our people. It includes our hereditary governance. So we have a process where our people gather and we actually get mandates to articulate this position. And so I speak truly on behalf of our people. And that's the plea I think we would ask people, is to look into the messaging that you're receiving on who represents the people. So there are companies out there that are misrepresenting that they somehow represent people. We can show that transparently how that's done. But I think the other concern around LNG traffic, I think, has been around hearing our perspective. A lot of people could predict that the Haida are opposed to it because of where we're located, surrounded by water. The risks are too great for more traffic. But when you think about the environmental assessment processes, a lot of the scope of those processes do not geographically include places like Haida. So historically, we've not even been consulted on what do we think about LNG traffic. And, people always say it's because they know the answer. But the reality is the process does not allow us to have our voice to be heard because of geographic boundaries that are set for that. So I think moving forward, that's something we've always advocated is, you need to hear from us even though you know the answer.
You would like LNG to be included in the moratorium?
Yes, for the Haida Nation we would, yes.
Hi, Holly Lake from iPolitics. I'm from the East Coast, so I'm not as familiar with the West Coast, but I wondered if you could kind of paint a picture for me of, if this bill does not pass, what that would mean for traffic, and what it would mean if you can describe the kind of area that these super tankers would be making their way through.
Yeah, so if you know where Haida is located, it's literally on as far northwest as you can go in Canada. So we're surrounded by water. We have Dixon Entrance, which is on the northern side of the island. We have Hecate Strait. These are very volatile bodies of water. For a ferry crossing, for example, is very very traumatizing for people even to traverse it. So I think, thinking about, what could be opened up if this moratorium does not go into place, that's the fear, is that even if you look at today's traffic, there's examples in Heiltsuk territory, there's example in Hartley Bay with the sinking of the Queen of the North. We've had near misses in Haida on today's traffic. And so when we do the analysis of what are these ships carrying today, there's already environmental catastrophe that could happen based on what they're carrying today. So we're like, this whole argument is around it's all about speculation about oil and gas tankers coming through our territory. So we're trying to show that there's risks today on our territory, and it's because of these waterways. They're very, very very, I'm not sure the word I'm looking for, but dangerous bodies of water to navigate, anything, especially oil and gas. So if you just look at what's happened in today's traffic, it gives you to show you how much is at risk. And if you open the doors to oil, gas, and all of the above, then it adds too much risk for us to even to talk about.
Because largely what would be moving through there now?
What is moving?
You say there's already a risk, so what kind of...
Well, I think if you look at where we're situated, there's corridors of, there's the Great Circle route going to Asia that traverses by the west coast of Haida. We have oil and going from southeast Alaska down to Washington. So that's today. So like I said, a lot of the work that we're working under now, under like the Oceans Protection Plan, trying to equip ourselves to protect Haida today, that's what we're up against. So there's already risks today. So we just don't see why putting a moratorium is going to somehow stop those risks. I mean, we're just trying to put a cap on opening it up to more. So we're just trying to deal with today's problems.
The moratorium wouldn't actually stop anything that's existing, it would just prevent it from expanding?
Well, right now, I mean, we're working on trying to, change the safe distance offshore, for example, off the west coast of Haida. So that's, there's a whole different angle on what we're trying to battle today. The moratorium has really been a debate around oil and gas and in Eagle Spirit and things like that. So there's a different conversation we want to talk about today.
And if I can also share just around the context of a diesel spill, it took an excess over 30 days to remove the tug and the barge from Seaforth Channel when it ran aground 2 years ago. And a part of that was due to the weather conditions, in Seaforth, being able to get the appropriate vessels up there to move and remove it. So, looking at this incident that happened, and the amount of time and resources and money it took to recover that, and we're not even talking about recovering any of the product that's spilled into the water. Once that tug sunk, it was a matter of minutes before our beaches were contaminated, and the damage was done within minutes. So the rest of it was more of a recovery effort to remove a barge that ran aground, and to remove a tug that sunk over over our breadbasket, over where we harvest. So for us, it's around what does happen when an incident happens, and the length of time and the resources that it takes to be able to remove those vessels. It takes a lot.
Contamination is still there.
Yeah, and the contamination is still there today.
So when again Eagle Spirit says they'll manage it environmentally, it'll be First Nations owned, and it'll be the safest environmental project ever. I am assuming you don't believe that's true.
Well, for us, we lived that experience in terms of a world-class marine response, and we knew that it doesn't exist. We know it doesn't exist. And what happened with the Nathan E. Stewart, it was human error. There were supposed to be 2 watchmen on the bridge. There was one, and he fell asleep. And the safety alarms and such were turned off. Some weren't even installed. So, that human error element will always be there. And, we are, living with, that continued impact, that negative impact.
What kind of response did you get in the Senate from your meetings with the Senate? What kind of response did you get?
We just arrived last night and we are meeting. We've had 2 meetings this morning and we're going into some more this afternoon with various senators and into tomorrow morning. So yeah, we've got a busy schedule while we're here.
But have you had any positive reaction to it?
We've had some, certainly some support, and then certainly some that are, looking more at the economy lens, of the ban. And, we've, put forward that we're not, anti-development, but we are very pro-sustainable development. And, we are, looking to promote, and you heard Garry talk about, the development in his community. The development that we are investing into is something that will carry us into the future in a sustainable fashion.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sure.
Are they all in the press release?
Okay, thank you.